space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black Space.
A safe space for our community.
Welcome to Black Space Live. I'm so happy that you're able to come tonight and join us. I'm your host, Parul, and we're going to have an interesting conversation this evening about code switching. I'm sure a lot of you are used to the concept of code switching in many different facets of your life. So before we really get detailed into anything, let's go ahead and introduce our panelist, Mr. Rock.
Oh, okay. Hey, everybody. It's Rakim Kaysen, better known as Rock Soldier, and I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to this topic.
Awesome. And as I said before, my name is Parul Benders, and I live in the Metro Atlanta area. As we've discussed in previous ones, my background is in DoD contracting and finance, currently an entrepreneur. And I know that a lot of your experience, Rock, has to do with kind of integration of people in different environments and how people adjust toward that. You want to start us off with a little bit of that and tell us a little bit about your experience?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm originally from DC. I'm back in the DMV currently, just returned here from living in Los Angeles briefly, and I'm co-chairman of an organization called the International Association of Young Adults. We call it IAYA for short, IAYA. Okay. And it's basically the Black version of AARP. It's a membership organization where we're focused on empowerment, liberation, and justice. Outside of the work that I do for IAYA, my background has been business to business sales for about 25 years. A great deal of that was in radio. I worked in radio for 10 years as regional sales manager for Westwood One. And I also sold advertising. So I sold radio programming and radio advertising.
Okay. And before we continue, I just want to let everyone know this is an interactive session. So while you're watching, if you have any questions that you want us to discuss on the panel, if you have any points that you want us to make, please feel free to put it in the comment section. I'll be reading all of the comments going forward, and anything that we find that's interesting and has to do with exactly what we're talking about, we'll go ahead and discuss. So going back to what you said, so you're saying that you dealt with a lot of radio.
Yes.
Right? So did you find it to be difficult with different demographics with regard to approaching people or having to essentially code switch?
I've done a lot of research on code switching since we initially discussed this topic. And I think probably when I was younger, there was some unconscious code switching. I've never been one that I can think of where it was a conscious matter, because first of all, I don't speak a foreign language. Mm-hmm. So I know that code switching happens a lot in situations where people speak multiple languages. And my demeanor, my approach, the way that I talk now is pretty much the way that I relate and talk to people in almost every environment. So, I haven't had a lot of pushback, nor have I had a huge desire to be someone who had to code switch.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't, but later on when I became more conscious, if this would be considered code switching, I may not discuss certain things. But it hasn't been a situation where I've had to change my demeanor or change the way that I speak, because, sometimes I'm hood, sometimes I'm not. But I've been that way, whether I'm in the hood or whether I'm, working at the Pentagon or whether I'm, in a sales meeting. It's been pretty much the same.
Understood. Okay, so before we continue, so glad to have you here, Otis. Why don't you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
What's up, Otis?
Hey, Rock, how are you? Nice to put a face to a name.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. For everyone that knows me or doesn't know me, my name is Otis Reed. I am an attorney in Houston, Texas. Just celebrated 10 years last weekend at homecoming. Go TSU,
Congratulations.
Texas.
Hey,
And I'm just happy to be here, happy and honored to be a panelist.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we have everyone here, I just want to go over the general definition of what code switching is. So, according to Google Dictionary, code switching is the practice of alternating between two or more languages or varieties of language in conversation. Now, that's one aspect of code switching that is being discussed in this definition, because we all know it's not just it's not just a language barrier. It is a cultural thing in addition to what's accepted in certain corporate environments. So I think it would be easy to say that code switching is something that a lot of people within the Black community do feel compelled to do when they want to be successful in a corporate environment. Do you agree? So when we think of code switching, it's not necessarily just another foreign language. It is body language. It is general language that we use. Like, we don't use the same words that we'll use in, with the hood around our people and whatnot, as we'd use in an environment where we might have to speak with Becky and she might understand if I'm talking about going to the crib. She thinks I'm talking about a baby. So if you can give me a really good example of a time where you code switched, and when you did it subconsciously, and also a time when you felt forced to do it because a situation became uncomfortable for you and you weren't able to communicate with whoever it was that you're speaking with. We can start with Otis.
I guess recently I was working with this gentleman. Well, I was working with this group of attorneys, and I discovered that unless white people are forced to learn about Black people, they don't know like basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, wherever they get their information from, it's like based on the news. So they don't really know much about us at all. So I guess my example would be, we were talking about movies, and we were talking about Coming to America. And when I say we, it was myself, an African-American woman, and an African woman, a Nigerian woman.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about movies, and I'm like, oh, girl this, girl that, like in my normal slang. And then it just dawned upon me to kind of like ask the white guy that was like interjecting himself into our conversation if he's seen any of the movies, and he hadn't seen anything. So I gave him homework. So I guess my example would be, I said, you got to watch Coming to America. I said, you have to watch Coming to America, and don't say anything to me until you have. So he did.
Mm-hmm.
He was, delighted. He had a good time or whatever, but it just, it bothered me. And I started asking the other white people around me. And I was like, so you guys have all this music, you have all these books, you have all these different ways. I mean, interacting with a Black person to like get to know Black people, and they consciously choose not to, and they don't want to. They stick to their Fox News or CNN or whatever news outlet biased opinion of Black people. Right. So I guess, for code switching, I kind of had to take myself out of assuming that white people know about us just like we know about them.
Right.
And I had to start, I started running out of movies. So I was like, well, what have you seen? Have you seen The Godfather? So I kind of had to, go back to something that, was traditional and classic among white people to relate to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how about you, Rob?
wow. That's hard. That's because it's just, first of all, I've been in sales most of my life. So I can't really think of a time that, first of all, I'm not uncomfortable with the way that I represent myself.
Right.
Even when I'm with people that I grew up with, this is the way that I've always, as far as I can remember, this is the way that I've always articulated and communicated with myself, with others, and I never felt bad about it.
Right.
So I wasn't one that I feel like I had to be really, really hood around my friends and be, really, really professional in a professional environment. I've been kind of a hybrid of the two most of my life. So So I guess to answer your question, if it has happened, it probably happened when I worked at the Pentagon. I was a management analyst at the Pentagon, and I would suspect that, maybe in some meetings, I may have, been a little more professional, a little less. Um, yeah, probably the Pentagon.
Politically correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, and even when that happened, it was rare, because just like how I'm articulating with you two ladies now, this is how I articulate in my sales presentation. If I am engaging in a conversation with my son or my daughter, if I'm just hanging out with some with some fellas, now I may use more profanity,
Right.
when I'm with like people I grew up with, because I still use more profanity than I would like to. But even when I don't use a lot of profanity, it doesn't make me feel bad. I don't feel some kind of way about it. I don't, and I'm not around people that make me feel insecure about not using profanity, or make me feel insecure about using slang.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I think my experience is probably very similar, where I'm kind of a hybrid of the two. So when I do enter certain environments, I'm pretty comfortable. I don't feel like I necessarily have to conform so much. It's just the only change that I would probably say is I might be a little more bubbly with some of my people, but that's more of me being familiar with them as opposed to me having to switch.
Right.
And maybe some of my word choices may be a little differently, but that's more so just for comprehension as opposed to switching.
Right.
So with that being said, if we're not necessarily speaking on different things that we speak about when we're dealing with people, what are different ways that we feel that we might switch? And one thing that I think is a very big thing, especially for African American women, is switching their appearance. Speaking of natural hair is not always the most accepted in certain environments, and I know they're starting to pass laws that are allowing people to wear their natural hair, which is kind of crazy that you have to have permission to wear what grows out of your head as it is, and no one bother you for it. But I've spoken to plenty of people, and I'm guilty of it in the past, where when my hair was long and it was curly, I would straighten my hair or put it back into a bun for an interview so that I would be deemed more acceptable. Granted, when I started working there, after a while, the curls go loose, and I really didn't even care. But that was when I was a lot younger, and I know that I'm not the only person that's had to deal with that. There are plenty of people. That's why we have relaxers, that's why we have flat irons, why we have all of these other things that we use to make us look more European, more acceptable. And I'm just curious, what do you think? Do you think that's something that we should be held to as a standard of, or do you think that we should be allowed to just do everything freely? And I know that we feel like we should be able to do it freely, but I'm asking more so as far as perception and how you know that everyone else will be received by others. So see it from both sides, just for conversation's sake. Rock, you can go first.
I'm an advocate of people being free and presenting themselves the way that they feel comfortable with. I'm not an advocate of code switching. That's a jagged pill for me to swallow. So if a woman wants to wear her hair or what we call natural, you know what, go for it. Do that. Because otherwise, I mean, there's a ripple effect. When there's an unconscious ripple effect when we can't be ourselves, when we have to, because you kind of have to reduce yourself when you're trying to conform or assimilate,
Right.
And I don't believe in that. I think choose a different career if you have to.
Right. To an extent.
I'm just saying, just a suggestion.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel that if you personally are not comfortable in that space and you're not willing to feel comfortable for yourself, then you may just need to make a change for yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Be free.
But we do have people like OTs who really, hey, she's going to wear her hair however, so she's not going to switch her appearance. So go ahead, speak on it.
I disagree with Rock. And so overall, do I think we need to code switch? Absolutely not. However, It's a necessary evil. So, and I say that because, for instance, some of us have to be, revolutionary. Some of us have to be the Stokely Carmichaels, the Huey Newtons. And then some of us have to be the Trojan horse. Some of us have to be snuck into a place and then disrupt from the inside. So this kind of reminds me like of the larger conversation. I know this is kind of off topic, but I know we've talked about Jay-Z. Like, if you wanted to compare and contrast, is Jay-Z code switching or is he a Trojan horse? I would like to believe that he's a Trojan horse. That's what I want to believe deep down. I want to believe that, he's making it seem like, he's sided with the NFL and he's, turned his back on Black people, but he really is trying to get inside to disrupt from the inside. So that's what I'm going to believe about him. But when I think about code switching, I feel a few things. I feel, one, we are Black people. We are never going to be able to get to this level of whiteness or white acceptance, white appreciation or anything, right? And I think that the more Black your name is, you need to be as revolutionary as fucking possible. So T straightening her hair for an interview? Absolutely not. The most that you'll get from me is I might go and get like my hair 2-strand twisted by my actual stylist. I might let her do it so it looks neater. But outside of that, no. Have I been to an interview with an afro? Absolutely, I have. I feel like for me, like it's a little different. So I went to a PWI, private white institution undergrad. I went to an HBCU for law school. And I feel that as a result, because A, the LSAT is designed to weed people out anyway. They don't want Black people to be attorneys anyway. They know we don't have the standardized testing. They know it's not equal with regard to Black people and standardized testing. So that's already a way to weed you out. Okay, I know that. But my name coupled with being a Black woman, coupled with going to an HBCU, I'm already 3 strikes behind, okay? I'm already a negative. They're already like, yeah, we'll give her an interview, just to say that we satisfied a diversity quota. So why should I code switch for you? I'm not going to do it. But I will say this. I'm not going to do it now as 39-year-old Otis. Has 21-year-old Otis, has 28-year-old Otis code switched and changed her hair? Yes, she has. And it didn't get me. Right. The only thing that it got me was a feeling of uncomfortableness, as if I turned my back on my Blackness. But because I'm playing devil's advocate here, I also feel like it's a necessary evil. You have to be very mindful of your environment. I don't agree with changing careers. If I want to be an executive, I shouldn't have to change who I am or be so radical that it gets me nowhere in my career and I have to change careers because you couldn't get on board with my Blackness. I don't feel that that's a solution. If anything, that's succumbing to your enemy. That's succumbing to defeat. Like quit. That's quitting to me. So I wouldn't do that. Okay. But you have to finagle it and work it until you can get the result that you're looking for.
That's true. And so Anthony actually just said something. As a people, we have been indoctrinated from elementary school to act a certain way in public and around white people. It is a necessary evil in certain environments. Since we spend more time with others, that can sometimes be the new norm. And when we get around people that look like us, we turn it up a notch. Agree or disagree, Otis?
We turn what up a notch? As far when he says that, does he mean like, well, I'll answer. I mean, he can't respond, I guess, instantly. So I'll say this. That's absolutely me. Like, I have a potty mouth anyway, but yeah, if I'm around my people and I'm comfortable, like when I go home, I'm like, oh my God, I cuss so much. I didn't realize I curse so much. Even my family, like, you curse a lot. And I'm like, actually, I don't even curse this much. I only curse like this around y'all, but I guess that's zone. Whereas
he means turn up the Blackness a notch. That's what I thought, but he clarified when you get around our people, you turn that up a notch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean the slang, but I feel like I'm Otis 100%. You either love me or you hate me. There's really no in between. So I'm like, shit, this is who I am. Excuse me. This is who I am. So, I'm gonna be me. You gonna take it or leave it. Like, I'm not gonna change that. And that's me around Black people, white people, and everybody in between.
Which is kind of what Rock was saying too. He's pretty much consistent amongst all environments, right? So do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, definitely. Pretty consistent. I don't, I don't turn it up when this is me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, if anything, I might use a little more profanity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not, yeah, this is me. This is what
So
you're
why
going
do you think we use more profanity when we get around our people? Is profanity like an indicator that we're comfortable? When did that become?
yeah,
Because I know I do too. I have the most ridiculous potty mouth ever,
yeah,
but I do it around
more of
people
a
that I'm
comfort
familiar
zone
with.
than it is a code switching. It's just, I'm just more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
around people who, because first of all, I'm very suspicious of people. Number
Right.
so
And
at work, you're not my friends. You're my coworkers. You're my
mm-hmm.
colleagues. You don't need to see the real me
Mm-hmm.
at work. So I don't feel like that's me code switching. That's just me saying, you know what? You don't need to see all of that. That's
Right. I'm
not for
private. Say all my
right.
stuff.
My family members and my friends, they get to see the all aspects of me, and I'm okay with that.
Okay. And another one of our lovely listeners, Ivo, says she thinks that educated Black people code switch more with Black people than white people, actually. And I think it depends on the environment. So here's what I have to say about that. And I don't know, right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever it is. So Black people as a whole always have to prove something as it is, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, not right, wrong, whatever it is, but sometimes they do feel like they have to out succeed our own people. So when we try to switch, we like to show, well, I can be more Caucasian than you can, and I can get into more environments that you can if I switch
Mm,
to X amount of point. Not saying it's right, but I think that natural competitive nature kind of takes in with that amongst ourselves. Agree, disagree? What do you think? Yeah, you go ahead, tell me, Rock.
yeah,
You're laughing right. Huh?
spit it out, OT. So I can see her. I can see thought bubbles.
I don't know if that's indicative of code switching per se. I don't know if I would attribute it to that. But I will say that with regard to the education piece, I
Mhm.
mean, Black people, you have to code switch amongst your own people. Like if
Yep.
you know, if you have a vast vocabulary, for instance, like the way that I talk to you all is different than the way that I talk to my family because they say that I'm talking over their head or I think I'm better than them. I'm smarter. I think I'm smart because I went to law school. So, and that could be just, my family, my family could just consist of haters. You never know. But I will say that there is a tension in the Black community between educated Black folks and
Mhm.
non folks because for whatever reason, I don't know when this happened, but education is if you dare strive to be educated, then you are striving to be white. That's education is
Which is
synonymous
not
with
cool.
whiteness.
Mm,
Which is
Ridiculous.
not cool.
Yeah.
mm.
So no, I disagree with that statement, Parul, to answer
Mhm.
the
And Anthony says this it's something related to that. Does code switching equal making others around us comfortable in their environment? If so, we code switch with Blacks and others and not just white people. Agree?
What he
Because
said,
kind of like what you're saying, Otis, with the levels of education and being able to switch to accommodate your audience.
mhm.
yeah. But is he saying in comparison to with like we do that not only just with Black people, but with like our Asian friends or
Mm-hmm.
Hispanics or whatever?
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, I'm guessing that's what he's saying by others.
I can't really I can't really relate because I don't really have friends outside of Black people, honestly.
Really?
Everyone, yeah, like everyone that I know, like, I mean, I don't consider like my coworkers friends, but I
Mm-hmm.
do interact with, people that are not Black. But as far as hanging out with and like calling, I don't have any non Black friends. So I
Wow.
can't.
Right.
You
Me,
either? Am
me,
I the only?
me. I don't, and it, yeah, I don't. Now, when I was in high school,
uh,
I was part of in the DC area. I was part of the integration, the busing.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, probably in high school, what we define as a friend then I would say I had friends that were white and Asian. But
Okay.
now as an adult, all of the people that I consider friends are all black. I don't have any white friends. Now I have people that are, I know people that are white that I've worked with that I
Hmm.
still interact with on Facebook, or we might talk on the phone every now and then. But yeah, I don't, and even with them, I keep it, I'm just like this with them. I can think of two people, Molly and Danny. And the way that I'm relating to you two right now is exactly how I relate to them. Nothing
Wow.
changes.
So it is just
Well, I
me here that has other friends.
well, I'll
But
say this. So the white guy at my job, Charles, like that was the one who I was trying to educate about, blackness, like telling him to watch certain movies. Um, but no, I was the same Otis. Like, if I had to get somebody together, he saw that. If I, was being really sweet to someone, he saw like all sides of me pretty much. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know. I feel like, you know what? I think that this would have been a little more effective if you had someone that was a little younger on the panel because, myself, you, Rob, we're all like comfortable.
We don't care. We kind of,
Like if you had like a 21-year-old who's just entering the workforce, it would be very interesting to get their perspective because that would be interesting to hear like about code switching right now, especially in this climate. And none of us really can attest to that because we're set in our ways and we're confident in who we are as adults. So
right. But if you think about it, the millennials seem to be a lot more confident in their 20s than we were in our 20s because it's a lot more acceptable now to be the way that you are. I mean, you see a lot more women with their natural hair. You see a lot more men carrying on the way that you are. It was like back when we were growing up and we first entered the workforce, it was frowned upon for us to do those things because we needed to conform. So the conversation might still be similar to what it is that we're saying right now, if not more confident than us, because they didn't spend the time trying to develop the demeanors that we have right now.
Hmm.
They went into it being the way that they are.
Hmm.
yeah, okay,
I
all
mean,
right.
that's a good point.
Yeah. I know that I have multiple other friends though. Like whether and
So how
it's
does
I
that work?
mean, huh?
How does that work then when you're with them? Like,
I honestly just act the same way,
mm,
truth be told. But a lot of people say that I have just a very, well, I'm trying to find the word, universal demeanor
hmm,
per se. Sometimes I get offended because I'm like, well, what are you trying to say? I'm not black, I'm not this, I'm not that. But I learned to accept that maybe it is just universal because of my background and the different places, people that I've dealt with and where I've lived in my parents and everything else.
hmm.
So, but yeah, they get cruel no matter who they are. Like my white friends get the same as my Indian friends and my Asian friends, my black friends, and
Let me ask,
whatever in between.
do you feel amongst your others friends, are
Uh-huh.
they all a certain like socioeconomic status, or do you have some that are like well off, some that are not, like middle
The
class? Like
range.
there's a range because
Yeah.
do you find them code switching amongst each other since you can't relate to that? Do you see any subtle?
Sometimes they code switch to try to conform to me what they think. And it falls back into what you were talking about, educating. And in it, but on your end, he was kind of just being like, okay, I don't know what it is I'm doing here. Whereas these people, they're kind of like, oh, well, I think this is what Parul is gonna like. I think this is what they do in Miami. I think this was da, 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 da. Hey, do you want such and such? And it's weird, but and I out of the people that I interacted with for a while, it kind of split in two. Like I have my little, like let's say I have like 10 white friends, right? And
Mhm.
probably three of them will kind of be like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to be what I think that black people are. And I eliminated them really quickly. I'm like, because first, what you're not gonna do is put me in a bubble or make it seem as if I have to behave a certain way just because of your lack of education. And then there were the people, the other three, that would ask me, be like, okay, well, I'm not very familiar. Can you explain to me what it is? Like, oh, how this and that. And those people I actually will have a conversation with because those you can tell that they're genuinely like, oh my gosh. And then there are other ones are kind of like, well, this is not what I expected her to be. So I wanted this. I don't want to have any parts of it. I'm like, all right, well,
Hmm.
did you want to have a token ghetto friend or something like that? Because if that's the case, you can keep it moving. So
Yeah.
I do have those varied experiences depending on the groupings of people. It is very interesting to watch. It's an amazing social experiment for me, truth be
Hmm.
told.
Yeah, I had a friend that a young lady I thought we were going to be friends, but I think because I was unwilling to code switch, eventually, I think initially, because she's a liberal, I think initially she thought that she could handle it.
Mhm.
We could, but I think over a period of time, I just became too much for her. It's just like, because I just kept keeping it real. Like, if I'm talking about the system, I'm talking about white this or white that or black this. I'm talking about it to her just like I would talk about it with my man Mac. It was no different. And I think after a while, it became probably overwhelming for her. So she kind of weeded herself out of my life.
So let me ask you guys a question. I just thought about this. I had an incident where around the elections last year, there was a lady that was within our circle of friends. And I don't know if she felt the need to try to impress me. So I was the only Black woman that was in the space. And there was a commercial that came on, and she started talking, I guess, whatever the politician was saying, it was obvious that they were speaking negatively about African American people. And she was getting offended. Like, she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that, like trying to overcompensate. And then she turned to me and she was like, oh my, why am I so mad? I feel like I'm more Black than you. Have you ever experienced someone that tried to overcode switch in the other direction and to not only gain acceptance or just to get some sort of validation that they're worthy of being one of us? Otis.
So yeah, I experienced that a lot in college, actually. So as I mentioned, I went to a private white institution, Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia. About 700 students at the time that I attended. It was about 15 to 18% Black. They tried to say 20%, but that wasn't accurate. And I noticed that, so there was a lot of like regional, so like a lot of white girls were from Michigan and they would try to say they were from Detroit. And I'm like, oh, I'm from Detroit too. So where are you from in Detroit? You know, and I'm like, this white girl's not from Detroit, but I'll allow it. So I'm like, where are you from? So, you know, if you're at least from like the surrounding suburbs, I'll give you a pass. But this chick was like, she's from Novi. I was like, girl, that is not in Detroit. And then she started trying to talk slang, and it was just a disaster. She started trying to name streets. She was like, well, you know, my friend, a friend of a friend, like knows Eminem, you know, because she lived off of 8 Mile. This is like ridiculous, right? Just crazy.
Okay.
So I would just say that a lot of that was like girls trying to relate for me because they claimed to be from the same region that I was from.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was very standoffish towards white people in college because up until that point, Detroit is a kind of a segregated place. So although I went to school with white people, it was like the white people that I went to school with were similar to me as far as like same social economic status. So it wasn't like they had this power distance between us. When I got to Agnes Scott College, those chicks were rich. Woo, that was almost disastrous. Those chicks were rich, right? So they're looking down at you like, you little peasant, poor Black girl, what are you doing here? You know, like this young lady, speaking of code switch, and I'll use her as a perfect example so I can, you know, transition on to something else. This young lady came up to me, and it was like our first day of orientation. And she was like, oh, you know, what are you doing here? And I was just like, what? You know, it's like, what do you mean, what am I doing here? I was like, what are you doing here? You know, so like, I'm like, okay, I already knew I was going to have to check her. So she was like, well, I mean, did you get into Agnes Scott because of affirmative action?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, she was so racist, but she was just so ignorant. I'm like, girl, where I'm from, you would get punched in your face for saying something like that. I was like, no, I'm not here for affirmative action. I was like, well, let me ask you something. What was your class rank? And she was like, oh, 20 something. I was like, I was number 3 in my high school class. I was like, what was your GPA? And then she said it, and I was like, yeah, well, my GPA was a 4.8 out of a 5.0 weighted scale. I said, but it sounds like you are here because of affirmative action, not me. And then I walked off. So later on throughout our college experience, there was this lesbian young lady that was a Black girl. she started dating her, and she thought that, you know, she was cool now because she
So
was
she's a
dating,
lesbian.
because she's dating a black lesbian. And I had to check her again because she tried to, you know, use slang and, you know, hey, Otis, you know, what happened with us freshman year, you know, well, but I'm cool now because I'm with Kendra. And I'm like, actually, you're not. So I would say that a lot of my experiences were there outside of Agnes Scott. I really haven't had much interaction with white women outside of being in court. And I haven't had to really do anything to make them feel comfortable.
Okay. How about you, Rock?
Yeah, no, I don't. Mm-mm.
I should know better than to ask you. Like,
It's like I can't really, I don't know, right? You know, you can
That's
just
that's unacceptable. Like, and you know, I can think of maybe one person that might have been headed in that direction, but you know, it's like, you know, I'm gonna check it like right away, like, you know, and it's not gonna be funny, it's not gonna be mean, but it's gonna be very direct,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna be very serious, and I'm not, and then I'm gonna shut it down. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. That's all. Don't ever, don't get that comfortable around me again ever in your life, Slim.
Right.
Ever, ever. Don't get that comfortable. Or you don't know me like that, and you're not going to know me like that, and I don't want to know you like that.
Mm-hmm.
Take that shit somewhere else. Period. The end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
going for all of that.
and we shouldn't. We shouldn't have to deal with any of that. I mean, it's, yeah, we're talking about how some people, you know, have little momentary lapses and they do code switch, or they feel like it's necessary to be depending on certain things. But in no way, shape, or form should we be able to accept a level of disrespect where they feel because we haven't opted to switch that they can speak to us a certain way, or think that they can become down with one of us just because it makes them look good.
Right.
I don't want them to try to use, they shouldn't try to use us as puppets and pawns to make them look like they're more socially conscious or aware.
Right.
And that's part of the 10 ladies that I was talking about. You know, those 3 that we had to eliminate pretty quickly, because you can tell that they wanted to just say that I have a black friend. I want that pat on my back. When I have these social conscious awareness type things, I'm going to take a picture so I can smile with this person, so they can be like, oh, look at my one black, like Trump, look at my black person, look at my African American.
Right.
We don't need to be that African American.
Right.
So we say all this lovely stuff. We don't feel it's necessary. We don't feel we should have to code switch, but some people, in some instances, it's a necessary evil. They do it for whatever their reasons are. To transition out of that, what do you think that we should do as a community to get us out of those situations where we have to code switch? Like, Otis, how do you think it'd be beneficial? Like, we need to have more inclusive, and inclusive meaning including ourselves, in different environments, so we can be open to do what we do best.
absolutely. I mean, as a community, I mean, you know, we're behind. I mean, what is this, 2019, and we just started voting 50 years ago. So we are significantly behind as far as a community, and as far as comparison and contrasting to the status quo, right? But as far as what can we do, even though we're behind, there are still measures and things that we can do. So what can we do? We can be like the Tyler Perrys of the world. If they're not going to have at the table for you, you build your own table.
Exactly.
Get everybody there that you want to be there. But, you know, I mean, yeah, that takes time and it takes energy. The unfortunate thing about Black people, and the unfortunate thing about any kind of topic when we talk about Black community, is even though ancestrally, historically, we are a collectivist community, we are very individualized in America. So it's very hard to come together and kind of have any kind of movement whatsoever, because you have the Negroes that, you know, worship white people versus the Black people that are, you know, conscious and understand how everything works. The educated, you know, I guess you have the educated and versus the uneducated. So it's so many different stratifications within our community that unless and until we can all stop feeling like we are an enemy of one another, so we're gonna have people doing this right over here, people doing this over here, people like feeling like they're not included. But, you know, there has to be some kind of common ground, and what we all need to realize, it really is us against them. Like, no matter how much shucking and jive and tap dancing you do for white people, code switching, yes, massing that you do, they're not going to give you anything. Like, it's designed for you to stay at a certain level. So when we can get, I guess, if we can get those hopeless and hapless Black people, that group of people, because if you can get those diehards, if you can at least change their mind frame and have them on board with us, then that's the hardest group, in my opinion. The uneducated can educate,
Right.
you know, and educated people, they understand. And the people that are super conscious, like, everybody has a framework and everybody has a significant part, but we need to figure out how to get us all on one wavelength. And honestly, I don't know how to do that right now.
Yeah. How about you, Rock? I feel like you have a little bit of insight as to how we can all get together, even if it's on smaller scales.
No doubt. I appreciate that. Well, I want to go back to something OT said earlier about when she disagreed with me on a point. I want to say that I agree with what she said about the Trojan horse situation. But I just want to clarify that what I was saying is, if you are reducing yourself purposely and it's not comfortable for you, and obviously the caveat is, if you're able to just switch careers, like, don't keep reducing yourself and feeling uncomfortable in that environment. If you can't wear your hair the way that you want to wear your hair, and you're consciously code switching and consciously doing things to fit in, and it's uncomfortable, then it might be time to reconsider your situation. No matter.
Real quick, that doesn't mean you have to switch careers. That just means you don't work for the man, because
Right.
you have to be the man.
Right. And
I think that's what he's trying to say. I think what he's saying is that particular environment.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head.
Employee to being your own employer.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's, either be comfortable where you are as the Trojan horse in that environment, be free, or we this is something that I've talked about on some of the other shows. We gotta be we have to be interdependent.
Yep.
We have to start our own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Koreans or the Vietnamese or whichever ones, I don't know which group, which ones
both
salons, which ones the hair salon, the hair supply places, it doesn't really matter to me. They're not assimilating. They're not code switching. They're opening up bulletproof glass restaurants, selling chicken to us. They're doing our nails, and they're selling hair beauty supplies to us. And they don't really code switch. They're like, okay, you come in here, I might speak some broken English, but whatever. I may not speak English to you at all, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We have to feel confident and comfortable enough to do the same thing. However, in the work environment, going back to the Trojan horse situation, in the diversity remarks that were made, we have to be more free so that the environment will in fact really be diverse.
Yeah.
Because when we show up acting like brown and black skinned white people, we're not representing diversity.
Right.
In that situation.
You're right. Absolutely.
Diversity in those situations would be better than pretending like, or dressing like them and behaving like them. We're really doing ourselves a disservice in that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I always come back to this anytime I'm speaking about anything related to this. What ways can we educate the people around us to help them appreciate and take on their Blackness, or I'm not going to even say Blackness, their culture, because like I said, code switching is not just Black people, it's every culture that they have to adjust and assimilate and whatnot. What are the best ways generally to try to educate people on comfort, and what is it they need to do to be able to move forward in their true self? Otis.
I would say this honestly. So I was, as you were asking this question or formulating this question, I was thinking like of, how I could respond to it and like examples and anecdotes.
Mm-hmm.
Three biracial little cousins that I love dearly. One is 21, one is 16, and one is 14. And the 21-year-old, she's at Western Michigan right now, university. She is about to enter the workforce. So she has the beauty, I don't know if you want to say beauty, she has the benefit, I guess, of being in both worlds. She's Black and she's also white.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I would necessarily not, I wouldn't tell her not to code switch, but I would tell her, look, I'm not going to be around you. I don't know how you interact with white people, how you interact with Black people in a professional environment. All I know you as my little cousin. But I would teach her the game. I would tell her what code switching is, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
tell her, if you don't do it, you got to do it for a purpose. I would advise you not to, but she's not like a revolutionary type of person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily deter or detract, but I would say, look, this is reality. This is life. Like if you in this industry, this is what the harsh reality of this industry is for a woman that looks like you. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna play to win, and this is what code switching is. This is how you do this, and I would coach her through it per se. But I would also say, now everything I just told you, throw all that out the window. Because if you want to just be you, make people respect you for who you are. And you
Right.
get very far in this life. Now, you might not be somebody's employee, but you will get further in life by being you. That's why I work for myself. I have my own practice and so on and so forth. So I would give her the whole landscape and the options. It would be her choice. To answer, so I was thinking about that, from when you were framing the question. The second half of it is, again, it's all about comfortability, but it's also about recognizing, what it is you're trying to do. If you're trying to be the first, African American president of the Engineers Association of America,
Mm-hmm.
you might have to do some code switching. Unfortunately, you might have to
Get
be
it.
that. You may have to be that Trojan horse to get in there to be the first, so we can have a second and we can have a third. Am I
Mm-hmm.
tired of these? Well, the first, I'm so tired of somebody being the first Black person to do something. Is 2019,
Yeah.
but that's the reality of it,
Right.
and if you're gonna, I guess my advice for anybody is, if you're gonna do it, play to win. Like, don't lose yourself in it. Understand what you're doing it for. Have your game plan, but also remember, and this isn't that's your fallback plan. Your primary plan is to be you and be the best you that you can be,
Absolutely.
and go with that. That's the thing. A lot of us, I mean, I guess because of my name and because of who I am, like in my experiences, like my mom instilled in me to be me, Otis. There's only one Otis on this earth, and to be me. So I've kind of always had that. But for people that don't, that's not an easy thing to get, especially like if you went to college and you paid all these loans and you're trying to get into your career and get yourself established. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would say talk to people and just, get comfortable with you, and then let the world gravitate towards you.
Right. And it's interesting that you were talking about your biracial niece, and she's going to have to deal with code switching on both sides, regardless. So she's probably going to have double the work of any of us, because she has to be able to conform either way. So, Rock, what are your thoughts about that?
In terms of educating
Mm-hmm.
each other about code switching, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a lot to be better prepared for this. I did some researching, and I discovered what I expected to discover. So I'm gonna answer your question in two parts. I think on a macro level, um, we have to be in more control of the narrative about. We got to be in control of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
As it results to code switching and the anthropological connections, the social and the political connections, even the terminology and phrases that we're using, the majority of them, and I haven't been able to, I didn't finish my research, but the majority of what I found was all presented by white people. The books, the papers, the
I'm
research,
surprised.
all being presented to us, about us, by white people. That has to stop. We have to be the think tankers. We have to be the anthropologists. We have to be the ones controlling that narrative from a high level. We have to teach the teachers how to discuss code switching. So on a macro level, and that also, as I've said in many other instances, that includes organized behavior. So I won't go into that. But on a micro level, we also have to, like on this level, teaching requires modeling. So we have to model the behavior. Okay, that's part of teaching. That's part of educating. Also, part of educating is doing what we're doing now, having podcasts, having radio shows, having discussions that people can hopefully easily digest. And then we have to continue to have the conversation. It can't just be this podcast about code switching and then 2 years from now we circle back around to it. It has to be a constant and consistent diet of, and that's part of the education, the discussion. Right. I've always said, leads to discovery, and discovering things is educating. That's how we empower and educate people.
I agree. And then Anthony actually said something similar to that. Check your friends and family at the all the time when you see the behavior that impacts the collective Blackness negatively. Love doesn't always come with a kiss.
Right. Good Perfect. Point,
Anthony. Okay. Well, do we have any closing remarks? I think we've pretty much touched on a lot of different aspects of it.
You guys, I was sitting here thinking, I didn't get this job at a firm because they recognized that I was not going to code switch or assimilate and jive for them. I mean, they already had one tap dancing Black woman there. They didn't need to. So I was not going to do it. But I remember specifically. So my name is Otis. It's 5 letters. It's not hard to pronounce, in my opinion, but apparently it is for most people. So the white guy partner, I tell him my name. Before, like a few days before this big company luncheon that we have. Oh, Otis, that's such an easy name to remember. I won't forget. Oh no, not at all. That's so easy. Ha ha ha. We go to lunch, and in front of 50 people, he stands up and calls me Otis and laughs. So I guess at that point, I don't know what I was supposed to do, but I'll tell you what I did. I stood up and I said, ha, ha, ha. Brian, you know my name is not Otis. I just told you what my name is. My name is Otis. So this is what we're going to do. If you're not going to call me Otis, you're going to call me Miss Reed. And it was complete silence. And shortly thereafter, my internship ended. But it was ending naturally. But I was the only one that didn't get the offer for the firm. But I was the only Black person there. And I think they were auditioning me really to see if I was going to be a tap dancer, not if I was going to be a valuable asset to the firm. It was to see if I was going to be, assimilating to their whack BS that they had going on at the firm. It was countless other stories that they took me through, crazy things that they did. But that just made me think, it's like, that was my eureka moment. I'm like, okay, am I going to allow this man to disrespect me in front of 50 people and then also tacitly allow them to do the same? Right. Or am I going to say, absolutely not. What you're not going to do is play with my name and disrespect me. So I guess that's kind of what code switching kind of boils down to. Are you going to be the token that they want you to be? Or are you going to be the beautiful king/queen that you are and stand true to yourself and deal with it?
No doubt.
Yeah. No doubt. How about you, Rock?
Yeah, I guess my final word is be free and or organize. That's it.
Absolutely.
Be free where you are, be authentic, be yourself, or put yourself or a group of people, organize yourselves, go start a business. That way you can be free and make money. You don't have to assimilate and do all of these other things, the buck dancing and tap dancing and being all of that for somebody else.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you too. As always, it's a pleasure speaking with you guys. I really appreciate the insightfulness
Oh,
and
awesome.
the
Thank you.
content and with that. You're awesome. Both of you guys are awesome. That sounds like, yeah, you're awesome. Yeah, that's what it was. High five, fist bump.
So much.
Okay. All right. So to everyone that's tuning in, thank you so much for your commentary. We really appreciate incorporating it into our show, and we hope to see you this coming Thursday. We will be discussing some interesting items with William Muldrow. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him, but definitely tune in if you haven't. William, yep.
Gumbo soup right there.
I know, right? So we'll be here again on Thursday at 7 p.m. So everyone have a wonderful evening.
Black Space, a safe space for our community.